instead. This diverse group sitting in this room today has been brought together through James's life and through his art. It's an impressive community you have built, James, and it will only continue to grow as we share our stories with each other. Speakers will be reading James's words for each image, which also appear on the screen behind us, and then they'll be adding their own stories or reflections. The banner itself is outside, as you saw on your way in, and it will remain in its current location on display until the 14th of May. After we've been through the panel, we're going to hear a few words from Am Johal and Dean Wilson. And I'd just like to thank you all again for being here. So without further ado, I'm going to present Your Story, My Story, Our Story, The Narrative by James Cumming.
Carnegie, 1903. The library is born. Rain, Vancouver, wind, Vancouver, 1997. These drawings in winter represent the Carnegie facing the storm at Hastings in Maine for the last 100 years. Heart of the City Parade 2003. A culmination of festivities celebrating Carnegie's 100th anniversary. And since I'm supposed to add a little story, I just wanted to say, I'm Wanda, I know most of you probably. I work at the Carnegie Library. James came in every week, 2 or 3 times a week. He took our papers that we didn't use anymore so people in his building could have newspapers to read if they couldn't get out. He read lots of great mysteries and recommended a whole bunch of them to me, which was good. And we really enjoyed seeing him every week. It's an honor to be here.
To all my relations. My name's Patrick Smith. I come from the Coagulut people. And although I love and cherish all the panels, this one spoke to me the most, and I was so thrilled and honored to be able to, talk on behalf of it. It's one that represents the potlatch of 1905. This young Native man is being sent into the racist hell of the BC Penitentiary for the crime of participating in the potlatch ceremony. And these relatives here, they're my own blood relatives. Nobody here knew that. It just happened by fate, I guess. That I'd be honored to be able to, speak on behalf of it. As we're here today, this was in 1905, but, right today at this moment, they're having a sweat ceremony in the downtown Eastside in the 100 block, so, it just shows how far we came, so, it's really, really memorable for me, so thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Dean Wilson. I'll be speaking a little bit more later on about how this whole thing has affected me. But on this slide, the anti-Asian riot of 1907. First, an angry mob attacked Chinatown, then turned its anger and hate on Japantown, where the Japanese fought back and won. I don't know if anybody knows about what history about this, but back then the Japanese and the Chinese had been brought in to build the railroad, and they were doing a much better job than most of the Caucasians, and that brought a lot of anger, and it turned out to be the riot. And one of the things that came out of this was actually all drug laws that are today we're facing in this world. In fact, William Lyon Mackenzie, who was then the Solicitor General of Canada, was sent out to do reparations to the people who had suffered losses at the riot. And when a Chinese pharmacist came up and asked for to be repaid back for 2 chests of opium, he couldn't believe what he'd heard. So he looked into this and found out that this was what supposedly the Chinese were using to make them better workers. And within 2 weeks of that time, the very first laws against narcotics were enacted in Canada, in fact the whole world, 2 weeks later. And that was the beginning of the rest of the war on drugs, but that was the beginning of the war on drugs, and it started right here in Chinatown. The next slide is the Salvation Army, 1910. This Christian organization has been and remains to this day an integral part of the downtown Eastside community. Singing for your dinner. I think anybody who's, myself, I'm no longer an addict. Well, always once an addict, always an addict, I guess, but I'm no longer doing drugs. But when I was, I ate there many a times, and many people have, I guess, used it for sustenance through many years. I didn't know it went back that far until I actually saw this panel, because it just seems amazing. But the downtown east side of Vancouver has always been a bit of a rough and tumble place, and back then it was more two-fisted drinking than the drugs. But I imagine even those loggers who ran out of money with their living from check to check needed the odd meal too. So just got to say thank you.
Hi, my name is Murray Bush, and this panel is War 1914. It is my contention in this panel that if the truth about the war had been made known on the front page on the first day of the war, no one would have gone. And this is only yesterday, 1916, gas. And this is Vimy Ridge, 1917, our people fighting and giving their lives for our freedom. I first met James when I went to photograph the mural at the Life Skills Center, and I've met lots of artists, but I thought he might be more precious about walking on his piece of art, and I was trying to walk around it the whole time because it was laid out on the floor. And he was walking all over it, and I couldn't believe he was doing that. And he said, "Take off your shoes, come on." And he really encouraged everybody to do that, which is a very different approach, which I think speaks to who he was. Thanks.